Hello, hello. Wow, early entrance for the cat. How's everybody doing? You have found yourself on the Toy Armada live Friday night chat. I've been gone a few weeks. Sorry about that. Working on other things. How's everybody doing? Always something new with the cat. For those of you in the new here, this is Jiro. He usually makes an appearance, just not this early. But it is he and I living in this big house together, so he doesn't go too far at this point from me. So, hi, I'm Aaron Archer. I am a creator, artist, toy designer, and I spent 18 years at Hasbro Kenner, working on Batman, G.I. Joe, Episode 1, a lot of other smaller brands, but mostly Transformers for 13 years, where I worked on the movies, the comics, the video games, in some various capacities as we created the franchise from within. So tonight, I wanted just to see what people wanted to talk about in general. But I thought I would talk about just overall factors in how toys are made, and then a little bit of how that will affect the hobby in general. Because I lived through a few different types of things that spiked prices in the toy industry that I'll cover a few of those. How you doing, Ninjatron? So welcome to the Friday Night Live. El Kevo, T-Formers 2002, how's it going? Windcharger, Giant Bumblebee 2, how's it going? Welcome. Yeah, I came back. I had a lot of other things going on. I had some technical difficulties the other night, so I didn't do the live on Saturday. Sorry if anybody was paying attention to that, because I was not there. So, we're back in Ohio. This is the new old studio, or the old new studio. Yeah, so I don't know what else. I didn't get anything new in the last couple weeks. I did get some very nice gift. I got a plastic skull, which is really awesome, of a saber-toothed cat. It is in transit because it was in Rhode Island and I didn't have room for it on the plane ride home. So that was very cool. After our bone discussion, I pulled out this guy too. I got a lot of these little vampire skulls. They're actually monkeys, but they look like vampire skulls with those big fangs. I have several of those. Anyway, so I got a gift, so I appreciate that. Thank you. We'll show that off when it gets to Ohio in a week and a half. Sabertron Toys, how's it going? $2 super chat. See you at a con later this year, Angry Archer. I hope so. I will be at TFCon Toronto, God willing, and Chicago as well. And I think I'm going to do a few smaller shows here and there. Mostly little local things, nothing too far afield. But, oh yeah, can you hear the purring? Sorry. Hey, Baron. How's it going? Yeah, so just been busy getting back into moving into the house, cleaning, busting boxes down, putting books on shelves, going to the grocery store, getting stuff that you don't think you need. Yeah, we'll get to some of the prices. I'm not going to talk too much numbers because I don't want to get caught in the details, but I like to talk the overall bigger picture things. But we can certainly, we will touch on that for sure, El Kevo. So, let's get into this. So, I I won't even start with the obvious, with the tariffs and what that'll do, but I want to go back at least to my toy beginnings, and this is going to sound a little bit like Old Man Archer, but I just want to give kind of a progression as to how this stuff has changed over time. So when I started in the mid-90s in the toy production business, which is largely a plastic manufacturing business, okay, so strip out the toys and the fantasy and the IP and everything. They're just plastic manufactured parts with simple electronics often, and simple gearing and pivoting and springs. So and they were kind of, that was a lot of what China did at that time. We are before the large explosion of even computers, much less cell phones and portable phones, mobile phones. So we'll get to that. That's another, several years down the road in a way. But they largely made plastic goods for the world in China. And at different times, things have changed the math. So when I started, a deluxe toy in general was $5 to $7, $4.99 to $6.99 in general. Depending on where you bought it, you could certainly find higher prices. And a deluxe item, some sort of slight bell and whistle, whether that was a speaker or one LED or something, might push to $10.99 to $12.99, $9.99 to $12.99. And high-end item in a given line was often under $60, likely under $40 in the mid-90s. Things like the Bat Cave play sets might have been pushing into the 75s, the 80s, which was extreme for that era. I think the Millennium Falcon, when it came back out, it was like $50, and that seemed like a price gouge at the time, almost. So then different things happened throughout the years. So China slowly wants to get into more sophisticated manufacturing over the next 2.5 decades, so that they are a premier place for technology, not dirty, plastic, toxic manufacturing. Let's just be straight, right? Plastic manufacturing is not glamorous manufacturing, not like building mobile phones or computers or something like that. You can get your employees paid higher, you can make more revenue with those higher priced items, those kinds of things. So China has gone through this big change. At different times along the way, there's been oil issues. So whether it's OPEC changing the price, a conflict somewhere where it slows down production, a storm like Katrina, or the one after that hit Texas, that can kind of affect the output of oil. There again, toys are made of plastic. Plastic is just a polymer. Polymers are oils. And so when the global market of the commodity changes, everything down the line gets pinched. At the same time, I will also say toys, mid-90s, might have had a 2 to 5 to 10% royalty, depending on the type of product you made. The higher end items, the royalty sometimes would go down, so that you could invest in the technology, because pricing was so kind of tight that you couldn't deviate too much. So even the licensors kind of benefited and helped, or added benefit, by dropping their thing so a good item could get made. That has changed. The royalty is what the royalty is, and it has just been getting higher and higher and higher, to the point where you have some items that are 38 to 45% royalty between the movie people, maybe the actor, maybe a car manufacturer, on top of some producers or movie studio or some original inventor all might have a little bit of revenue in that costing, which puts less plastic out there. So I'm throwing out a lot of things that affect the amount of plastic that you get for a certain value. So this would be a good example. So this is, when I started, was a deluxe, or just a basic action figure. I think we called them deluxes. Or no, this was basic, just basic. Had a black backup blister, kind of had parts spread out, insert. All these things cost money. At different times, in order to save some pennies, because the royalties were going up, they got rid of the backup blister to the point where it's really vacuum formed to the card. This was not successful for a number of reasons, but that's why you see that happen. Was that it was an attempt to take a few pennies out of the costing for it to go wherever it needed to go. And that was because the animated series probably had a higher royalty than Total Justice, because this came out before this one. But that's, so that happens sometimes when that, like the oil crisis happened. You negotiate prices up front with the factories, so you're okay for a certain length of time. With the negotiated prices, they can't really jump them on you, because I've never seen something jump way high, so I can't. That would be a different scenario. But after 2 months, 3 months, definitely into 4 months, you have to renegotiate everything, and then hopefully you have either adjusted your product mix or come up with a new segment, essentially, with new costing variables, is often what happens. Because all of a sudden, if I'm a fan of this product line, let's just forget that's Total Justice, and I expect a certain number of pieces, certain amount of deco, certain fanfare with the packaging, whatever it might be, and presentation, let's say, and then all of a sudden I get half as many pieces, the presentation looks a little junkier, maybe there's no insert card here. Do I want to pay the same price? You don't want to give that value comparison necessarily on shelf, so what you do is you create a whole new segment or construct to make it look like, well, this is the new value of this thing. And you can only do so much of that before you lose core elements. One thing that used to happen when prices would spike for whatever reason, sometimes we would go through this exercise, and this is real, and I really wish, I'll talk about it again with Steve Bono, but we would have an item that was so off from like wave 1 to whatever happened to wave 3 that we would cost the wave 1 item under the new conditions, and it wouldn't pass. We'd run the item with just the packaging with the new conditions, but with the old item, and it wouldn't pass. Like we would do sometimes like a penny inside the package, like that's the item cost was a penny, and we couldn't make the numbers work. And that's when lines just go away. When wave 2 hits or 3 hits, it's just over. And then all of a sudden, oh, there's a new thing. Sometimes that's happening because prices are spiking somewhere, and you can no longer offer the same value for what you're asking, or you need to ask so much more that you need to reset kind of the expectation and or offering into a new concept. Okay, so is this interesting? I got fascinating. How do you establish what the conditions are between waves? Well, hopefully there isn't the ideal situation for all businesses. You hear this on the news if you listen. Businesses like consistency and expected outcomes. So ideally, things aren't changing dramatically. Things can go up and down through natural price increases. Inflation does happen because you're not going to get the same toy today for $4.99 that I was making back then for $4.99. Just inflation overall, the price of all those component parts. So the conditions happen to you essentially because ideally everything's humming along, but then there might be. I'll give you some more scenarios. A strike at one of the import ports of entry, whether it's LA or Seattle or New Jersey, where toys might come into the country. For whatever reason, there have been a number of strikes over the years, and I applaud those guys for getting their money, but it slows down. The need for shipping. You have to pay to have that stuff sitting on boats while they're not getting unloaded. So that might change the price of goods or the value of the goods or timing of the goods. All of a sudden, that third or fourth wave you might have been hopeful to work on doesn't need to be made because now they got all this stuff sitting in a warehouse somewhere that they got to work through over the next year. That stuff happens. Previous to the big V, there was SARS, and that slowed a certain amount of production down in the Hong Kong area, and slowed the ability to put out toys because there weren't as many people working in the factory. So we had to adjust the output and the number of items, the volume of the items that we did get made in production. We made more of at that time than we might have normally made because we weren't able to make some of the ancillary kinds of things or get as many of them. So that affects cost, and a lot of this there can be timing too. But the big movers are oil because it's a commodity, and then the global flow of that commodity on the ocean, in the air, and the free movement country to country to sell these items. Now, I will also tell you that a deluxe item in the United States that gets shipped to every major retailer back in those days, you could get this for $7.99. This same item, if it made its way somehow to Norway, Germany, Brazil, maybe even New Zealand, Australia. Australia was probably a little stronger than some markets, but this thing all of a sudden is $15 probably back then. So there, anybody who can speak to it that's here globally, each market is very different in what it can absorb, because there's one way or another there's import tax, whether it's just the amount of time it takes to ship it there and that gets added on, or you got local distributors and brokers who get their cut because they're driving it around maybe big odd countries that are cities are far apart, like a Spain or Brazil, that has a lot of stops along the edge but not too many things going in interior wise, and different things those will all affect the types of in-market conditions as well. So if a price spike happens and it affects the U.S., where the majority, I would say, of the product is sold, and that majority might only be 60%, but then the downstream effect to the other countries is going to be there anyway. Yeah. So the Hasbro products are more expensive in Mexico. Yeah. Because there has to be an office there that has to get paid, right? Salaries or whatever, to import the stuff, and they made a partnership with some local store or distributor to then work maybe within the local stores. And it's just the nature of how the world works. Everybody's getting their little bit of that, their cut. Some larger than others. Some places it's more of a shakedown. Or it's the only option you got, take it or leave it. Some countries it's like Entertainment Earth. That's it. I'm not saying any commentary on Entertainment Earth. I'm just saying that kind of distributor that has a lot of interesting, crazy things, but you're going to pay to get them because they have them, and if you want them, that's how you got to do it. There might not be a store at all in country to get you the stuff. So these are all things that have over the years, and then general inflation, we've got to the point where what used to be I think I'm accurate on this, could be off, but so this was $4.99 back in the day, 3 modestly painted simple Transformers, right? And then what does this cost today? This is like $10 to $12, right? I think this was $5 back in the day. So and then this is packaged much more modestly. Cringe McCringle gave me this, so I appreciate that. So you can see the package is shrunk, the plastic material is shrunk, the feature inset, extra springs, screws, projectiles, clear parts have shrunk. Shit. Okay. So wasn't this $7.99 back in the day, depending on what country you lived in? You got a pretty robust featured vehicle with play value, clear windows often, a secondary minicon kind of vehicle, Transformer, a card/sticker, a comic book, catalog, and this is a few dollars more. That's how far we've come in 20 years. Okay, so there's your inflation overall. Now, get back to China. Now there's less manufacturing doing the dirty plastic work, so that stuff has shifted to Vietnam, who can maintain the prices at a lower kind of acceptable price somewhat. I don't know the volume of how much Vietnam's doing these days, but I'm guessing it's more and more. But then that's an extra distance from Hong Kong ports to get to East Coast or West Coast ports rather. So that takes up some time. That's going to add gas and mileage, time to pay the staff of those boats. So that's part of your increase. Last I knew, Vietnam didn't have a big enough deep water port, so it often is ferrying goods from the port that they have to the larger container ships in a slightly out in the ocean kind of model. So that takes time. That's staff. That's insurance. So that's been adding to the price of some of the items. Chinese workers around the world all want paid more for their hard work. I'm not going to crap on that, but it affects the price of goods, and that's why capitalism has been chasing the dragon from Germany to England to America to Japan to Hong Kong to China to Vietnam to, India to, at some point Africa, I suppose. So it's kind of always chasing the cheaper workforce to manufacture stuff. And that just seems to be how it goes. So now we get to the world as it is. Gas and oil is still a valuable limited commodity. So in general, toys have gone up a little more than other things because they're so reliant on polymer, oil, plastic for their plastics, and there's less of that manufacturing happening. At the same time, licensing fees and partnerships have continued to go higher and higher as every studio thinks they have, the golden ticket, and we will take no substitute. You give us the platinum ride all the time, every time when you work with us, and that's just how it is. That's not throwing any aspersions to the DC, Marvels, Warner Brothers, Star Wars's, Disney's, whatever, Harry Potter's, Lord of the Rings. Everyone thinks that they have gold, and it's the people who's on those productions and marketing teams to promote it as such. So they don't take any substitutes. So they want the toys they want. They want them to look the way they want, and that's going to affect cost too. Where I was working in an era where we would tell DC, hey, I only have literally 15 paint applications. That is what the budget allows. So no, I'm sorry, I can't add tights or whatever might have been requested. Can you paint those straps that are sculpted but not painted? No, I can't. Things like that. But now it's almost like it's part of the marketing campaigns, so you are kind of expected and then to make the items like a McFarlane, make them right, and that's going to cost a lot. And the product pricing is going to be where it is. For years, the 5-point articulation kind of thing was $5 to $10. Now even Super 7's 5-point articulation characters are $20 or more. I find that crazy. I find the Marvel 5-point articulated guys at 20, or 16 or $18. Pretty wild too. Like, that's the inflation that I know that I'm an old man, or I was in toys for so long in the old world that this new world is quite crazy. Then we can get into some of what I saw here. The Marvel Legends, the Star Wars, whatever they call it now, Black or whatever. Its starting price is $24, it seems, right? It only goes up from there. And I don't know how that is a sustainable model, but that might be a discussion for another day. But what it definitely does then, just like this whole conversation, so a $24 item here, which I think is expensive, is going to be $35 in Mexico, is what I'm understanding. So at minimum, yeah, exactly. It only goes up from there. So that's pretty crazy when you think about if you're really bought into some of these IPs. Like, I'm a Stormtrooper guy, and let's say I wanted to army build Stormtroopers. I don't do that. I don't play that way or collect that way, but I don't care what kind of price deal you're finding and making deals with your local collector shop when things come in. You're spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to army build a unit of Stormtroopers or whatever. That's just wild to me. That's just wild. given again where I started, where the Raja Ghul was $4.99, and it was still a peg warmer at $4.99. All right, T-Farmer. Sorry. Yeah, I know I got one. I know I got both of them as gifts. Sorry about that. So, so that's what's happening. So now, all that is those are facts. That's not an opinion. That's not a statement of left or right. It's just facts. Inflation has increased the price of the commodities. Workers around the world want more pay. Toys are low-end kind of manufacturing, not the high-tech manufacturing kind of world we live in. And licenses have only become more important to the bottom lines of companies because that's how they guarantee a certain amount of revenue. So those have only gotten higher. All those things have already made this a reality. The pricing of all of these things. When Star Wars Black Series started, what was the price of them then? Were they 18? Were they even 15? Like, I'm curious about the price creep of those in general. But I digress. So all those things have increased in general, the pricing of things. I would say the licensing issues being a big part of it, as well as the oil commodity. You can't outrun, you're competing with everybody with the plastic. So those things have moved the needle the most. So now you add tariffs, okay? And whatever the tariff is, that's going to affect things like low-end products more severely that don't have a lot of wiggle room. Hasbro certainly made a decent margin on the toys, but the level of staff and oversight and logistics and professionalism across the board that was needed to pay for that kind of staff to a certain degree. The licenses were a big part of that too, because there's yearly commitments. You're paying a little bit on each toy sale. You're also paying a yearly overall thing, and if you do really well, maybe they get a bonus also, kind of thing. So it's already at a tight kind of situation. There's not a lot of wiggle room before you have to start severely taking off some parts of the item. And there's certain points where the package is, and the paint needs to be what the paint is, and it's got to be a something. So you get to a point where you really can get into a pickle. And I've setting this all up to basically say, then you add whatever the tariff stuff is, and it will just shut down certain amount of factories from even doing low-end stuff, I would imagine. And I don't see the license partners changing their basis of revenue to offset all these licensing partners that they might have that make all kinds of things, not just the toys, but a lot of things in plastic from China. So if they don't get relief from that, if the manufacturer partners, licensing partners don't get relief from the core licensee or licensor, then they might just pay their thing and just not make the products at all, because the overhead isn't so high that you can absorb 30% or 25% or whatever before the item is so severely compromised, or you've wrecked your own business. I mean, there's a point where you can't maintain your quality or your staff, and once you start losing particular staff, you're losing quality regardless. It's not going to affect, might get you through the quarter or the half year or something, but it's not going to get you down the road success, because then you lost somebody that knew a lot. That would happen too when these things would happen. The spikes and different things would affect the staff as well. There was often mini layoffs around these times, because if you're not producing a certain amount of items in a given time frame, you're not going to need those people to pump those samples through the system. So there's a couple guys in the shop that are gone, or you're not going to take as many photos during that time, so you don't have that assistant anymore. Stuff like that. I think the process of making any manufactured goods is going to go into a little bit of hibernation, and because it's just interesting to think that they'd be able to absorb too much of that for too long. It might be a game winner for a few things that are manufactured in the United States as far as games go, cards and board games, but there's no plastic manufacturing in the United States of any significance in the marketplace, in any category, and the OSHA laws as they stand, which certainly could be destroyed, but then there'd be other problems. But you basically cannot paint a figure or much in the United States on plastic because of the just general rules about toxicity and airflow and containment and everything else, that you can't manufacture big time licensed toys from the United States at this point in any shape or form. I have plenty of friends who have tried to look into it, different ways to look into it, different people that were trying to make it happen, that did manufacturing, but the painting of it is the biggest issue as far as the United States laws are concerned. Which, I'm human, and if it's not good enough for us, why are we allowing it other places? But I can't save that or solve that problem today. So I gave you a lot of weird toy development things that I've been part of that do affect the price of toys over time and can spike the price of toys over time. But I guarantee this will have an effect. Things that aren't already on the water, so to speak, or being manufactured are going to be some of the, I don't know about last things here, but it's going to be interesting to see how it goes down. If it sticks, then I don't know how long it'll be able to last. Look, if I don't know what kind of world exists where there's enough people that'll pay for $50 deluxes, and down the line, $75 deluxes in Australia or $125 deluxes in Italy. Is that realistic? How can you really make a business on that? Can you pay a staff to develop those? How many of those items can you really expect them to sell? I mean, people don't have, if you're buying 10 deluxes a year and they're usually $20, let's just say, you can account for, okay, I'm going to spend, this amount of money per year, but all of a sudden it goes to $50 and you're like, oh geez, you've exponentially exploded your budget. So I don't know if they get canceled, but maybe certain particular items, maybe not full lines of things, but more focused, unique, special items that will get a lot of. So if we're going to ship it in, if we're going to pay these tariffs, it's got to be something where people have to have it, and it almost guarantees sales or guarantees eyeballs from a constituency, a nostalgia constituency, or promotion of something brand new, something like that. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about, El Kevo. So, like things that are maybe in development for 27, even 26 to a certain degree. Anything that's not being manufactured, that they've already committed to and bought the raw materials for, could be up for discussion, where they'll either pump out more of fewer things that they have in the pipeline and hold off on some things. It could be interesting that way. So because you're placing bets, you're putting your money down that next year you're going to be that movie's going to come out and your product's going to be able to get there. And if you make this much and it sells for this, and after you pay your debts and your revenues, you get this, and that's worth it. But if things are constantly changing, you're just going to be very conservative in your choices. I would like to add that that Vietnam and other countries are already trying to negotiate, and tariffs are likely going to only be a couple months. Yeah, it's all, without getting too political, it's all big negotiation tactics. So they come groveling to the big man. So it's a strongman tactic for sure. It's a rich guy is wrecking a lot of people's budgets at the moment. But I think you make up a good point. A lot of these places are going to have to come and either make more favorable deals or whatever, spend more time at a particular golf course. But I do believe some of them will go off. But if you know this guy is going to be around for another 4 years or whatever, 3 years, 9 months, and but you still got to plan for some inconsistency, now. So all, our people, inflation is kind of going up. So I hear a lot of people are maybe buying a little less or maybe selling a little bit more stuff through various means. And so we'll see. None of this stuff is locked in stone, but I'm just prognosticating if it sticks. These are the things that the companies will have to think about. You think Transformers as a brand will get shelves, movies, comics, etc.? I don't know. Comes and goes. Depends if they have a... after Transformers 1, which just came way too late, I don't know. I feel like it all just needs to rest a little bit, but that's just not how they operate these days. Not sure if you were following, but Wave 2 of Long Box Heroes got axed entirely because of tariffs. Yeah, well, a small company that basically is doing it out of, with real licenses and everything, that's a lot of output of money. And to buy the raw components and put them out there and I don't know their business model, but at different times, these smaller companies, they don't have large margins. That's the salary, whatever they were going to profit. That's what the guys were going to make, maybe, or I've seen it happen that way. And if all of a sudden there's a 30% add-on somewhere or a couple of places, you've just erased, so it's not even worth getting into. It's not worth buying the raw components, paying for the shipping, making your deals. It's like, we'll pay our licensing fees and call it a loss, sadly. But that definitely, the smaller the company, the quicker the hit will be. It might not be able to last 2 months. You know what I mean? Things are month to month. The distributor needs their payment before they'll pick up the boxes to get them to the this place or that place or out of the factories, and things start getting squirrely, it just disappears. It just disappears. Sometimes you have to buy a bigger wallet to make room for more money. I guess so. Giant Bumblebee too. We just talking the price of toys over time, and particularly with weird bumps. What's the worst case scenario for the brand if they even decide to just put everything on ice? They would always have a reason to do a certain amount of business, even with tariffs. So, without getting in too much detail, I've said before, the contract with Hasbro and Takara is very beneficial to both of the companies. So it's an incredibly low threshold to keep the contract going in perpetuity. So you don't have to ever worry about that part of things not working out, because it wouldn't go away completely just to keep that contract going. But by the same token, that isn't a very high threshold to keep it going. So you absolutely could see a certain downsizing. But again, Hasbro is a big company. They have also big partners. There are promotable things about the brand, cartoons and characters and all that, to have comics and video games and everything. So don't think of Transformers as the thing that's going to slow down completely to a halt. It's most of it would be your smaller companies or smaller product lines, and or product lines that are already on the verge of having costing trouble, which you may not even ever know, right, from the outside. But sometimes there's case ratio math where the story of Snake Eyes had no paint on him, so you could put the paint that figure you normally would have had and add 2 or 3 more to all the other figures in that wave, so that math would work. But once you have different figures with different needs, and maybe Snake Eyes comes and goes, it changes the whole thing. So kind of rambling on that one, but you could only do so much for so long as a smaller company playing games, or smaller brands, because there's just a lower threshold. You can't afford to pay even more and then have something not work. So I would say it is a doubling down of things that we know work, and a lot of exploration, kind of new ideas or new concepts from anywhere are going to be harder to see the light of day if there is a 30 or 25 or whatever. You got to bet on winners, and if it's just your payment to get into the game is too high, you're gonna bet on a Deadpool, Mickey Mouse, a Transformer, a Star Wars character, something to make sure that whatever your new invention or segment idea or style is has a chance, versus something that's a little more, let's just call it, new or generic. He just keeps doing the loop. Hey Princeton Phalanx, how's it going? Wind Charger. He's watching the hands. Yeah, it won't be a CD Freedoms, right? It's not going to be canceled abruptly, but you could see the same item in stores a little longer, maybe fewer items overall in a given price range within a segment, at least for a few little months, Again, you're not going to pay to have things developed and just sit there if you can't actually manufacture them. Toys are incredibly expensive to produce within a Hasbro or a Mattel or a Lego. You got high-end people across the board working on this stuff. So if you don't need a percentage of items, that means the workload of all those people goes down, and at that point, can you now double up the workload of one person and get rid of a person, is kind of how they look at it. So that's another thing to think about. Yeah, they're going to have business, but they're going to be more cautious. That's all I'm saying. They'll double down on clear winners. They'll make more of things they feel good about versus less exploratory. Things that are heavily promoted one way or the other, maybe for a short term. The way I have to see it, there's plenty of cool stuff to collect that's already on our soil. Yeah, time to focus on that for a while. That's what I was thinking, Ninjatron. I'm like, well, there's a lot of interesting stuff that I know is around. This might help eBay for a little bit as people fill in the holes of their collection while there's not as much new, or maybe it's a little expensive to buy new for a while. I'm just, again, these are conceptuals. I'm not making any Nostradamus kind of projections that these things will happen. It's just different ways to think about it, of what could happen. I wish I could see some of the spreadsheets for all the Hasbro toy lines. I don't know what you mean by that exactly, but okay. Final question of the night. Hey, Sammy Hunter TV. What did you think Transformers as a brand needs right now, for example, in the movie and media department? Well, you're going to get a strange answer from me, I think. I think I would like to see a bringing back of the movie 1 cast, and having, with Michael Bay, and having a really thought through, like movie 1 was thought through with a little more care. I don't know if I was a little fuzzy there. And make a really good action movie, and maybe some really good story to bring a new character or two into the mix. But I think that for a coda might bring people back in and light fire into something. I haven't really thought about it too much. What they're doing with the comic book seems to be good, but that's very niche at this point. I still think there is opportunity to tell other stories away from the Autobot Decepticon war, but that scares them these days. Whether it's other planets and get back to a more Beast Wars-y kind of thing, or just something like the Wreckers or Wheelie, just some other type of adventures with a different set of bots. But that has to come with toy innovation, and they're not gonna do that in an environment that's questionable. So some of the answers I might try to give are really during the best case scenario situations. Yeah. No, I didn't hear that Hasbro's entering the video game industry, but that sounds like a terrible idea yet again for the third time they've tried it now. Their arrogance with games is hilarious. What did we talk about predicting the future, especially bad ones? Yeah, right. I I think that sounds like a name I would have CD Freedom named Megatronus. That definitely sounds like me. I want to see how profitable each toy line is doing and where their money is going. Sometimes I think about how I would change Hasbro's structure. Well, it's good on you, I guess. It's very tricky because each partner expects different things, and that changes costing, whether it's the price to make the deal, the yearly revenue, the royalty, the length, the depth of partnership expectation. Like, do you have to fly out there to get approval for everything? That adds to the budget, that adds to the bottom line, that adds to your royalty, and that adds up into the product cost eventually. So where, I'll give you an easy example. Like, if you go and buy a Lego, you're going to go buy 5 Lego sets, and you buy the City one, the Friends one, the Marvel one, the Harry Potter one, and the Avatar one. The Marvel, Harry Potter, and Avatar one, even though they might have the same amount of pieces as the Friends and City ones, are going to be $3 to $10 differences depending on the price, and where you're getting it and everything. But you're paying for that royalty. Same amount of bricks, but you're paying for that thing. And in some cases, you don't get specialty bricks, whereas in, maybe in some of the Lego-based IPs, you are getting a special pieces or whatnot. So each toy line, I say all that, within each team is different. Nerf's expectations for revenue and the investment that they put in is different than the action figure lines, which is different than the For Real Pets, which was different than Milton Bradley, which is different than, some of the other things, Creo or whatever they were getting into. So it's not apples to apples even across the company. So that is part of the issue now that 6-inch figures have become such a big deal, and there's a consistency expectation around articulation and deco and presentation, that the expectation for Marvel is going to be different across core Marvel, movie Marvel, Into the Spider-Verse Marvel, for Spider-Man, and then Disney with Lucasfilm and a Stormtrooper or a Chewbacca or whatever, and those prices, if you look right, don't always make as much sense. You're like, well, why is this one $15 and this one $30, and they have the same bodies and stuff? And then you look at McFarlane, he's a little bigger, but you can't even though the company is making the same type of action figure. I think they did it for Power Rangers, they did it for Dungeons and Dragons. The based on the license and the partnerships, the prices don't all match up, even though you're essentially buying what feels like a very similar thing. So I'll just throw that out at you, the chug bug, that would be tough to see how it all works. Because each is a little company unto itself in a way, based on the different economics that it is dealing with. All right, Baron K. Rule. See you next time. Thanks for being here. Good questions. Hey, Aaron, if Takara would ever ask you to come to their team and assist in making, if they ever asked, if Hasbro or Takara asked, I would probably want to come do something. My last encounters with Hasbro weren't exactly fun for me, trying to get paid for work I did, but Takara for sure. But I don't know that anybody's looking for that, but there's probably a few figures they'll get to before they would do Unicron trilogy figures. But you never know. You never know. I think they're doing fine with the way they've been doing it. I still need to pick up Galvatron. I haven't got Tidal Wave yet. I've been fortunate that I've made some trades and been given some gifts of some of the other ones. But there's a little bit of a gap now as they moved into some different segments. So I got to get Red Alert, and I think that's one of the last ones for a while, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know. Jetfire seems lost out there. I don't know if he'll make the cut now. And Sideways too. So as always, on my socials, I've been doing a lot of different things, but today I pulled out the old presentation board for my old character of the Batman character that I did back in the 90s, early mid-90s, because I came across the original drawing that I did. This is one of a few that I drew this big. As you can see in the actual presentation board, it's actually smaller. So I must have been going with in my comic book vernacular, like draw it a little bit bigger and then shrink it down. So I highlighted that on the social media today. Yeah, Cybertron Sideways got revealed. That's one of the last ones, but I want the motorcycle. And then I did this one this week after getting a few other commissions done. Kind of finished this one, the instruction sheet art. Yeah, T-Farmers 2002, I have yours packed up with your art and some of the Patreon things that I owe you. So I'll send that out on Monday. So if you're interested, check out on the website. I got a bunch of different images going on right now that are up on the site. They're all drawn on original toy instructions. And I'm still working on the bigger paintings. I got to figure out what kind of art show or something I'm going to do with these. But you can see I've kind of been finishing this one here of Megatron. Armada Sideways just got leaked. Nice. Yeah, Ninjatron, it was awkwardly large. I have a few of those that I come across. I'll show some Total Justice. My Dark Side was a little bigger, and Despero also. But they, I stopped drawing that big. Definitely. Hey, Timu. Yeah, the move has been ongoing. I finally got out of a lot of the boxes. Things are kind of where they belong. I unpacked, dishes, stuff like that. Yeah, it looks like a normal house. It's a little bit empty being one guy in a house that, is a whole family house. So it's kind of Spartan in some places, and then like my office here, and in the next room where I'm kind of going through all my art to figure out what I want to do with it. It's a little more busy. Yeah, that's what's going on. There'll be some other announcements for some other cons here coming up as well, but I'm looking forward to TFCon, and that's right. Looking forward to TFCon. Are the images on TFW 2005. No, which images? The Batman stuff? That would be on my Instagram. Oh, are the images of the sideways? I gotcha. Then I found this thing going through my stuff again. You remember this from back in the day? I was detailing these Lightyear vehicles. I've gone to town on this one. So I've had fun with that. Quite a lot of fun with that. So much so that I work part-time at a little independent toy store, and they have those vehicles for sale just because they're old now. But I forgot how devoid of paint they were because I've been looking at this one that I Gundam'd up considerably. So pretty funny. I might buy some of them again and just keep detailing them up and maybe change some colors and stuff. That kind of, it just is fun. And I'm not the type that wants to build a Gundam kit, but I'll take a pretty cool spaceship and turn it into more realistic looking thing, especially if it has all the great scribe lines already and engine detail. They work great with my Posca markers and stuff. I'll do a little post on maybe on the Instagram and the YouTube page to show the detail a little bit better than I think you can see on the screen. Plus I can't hold it very well. It's kind of weird. But it's got a lot of good funky stuff. I even went in and did the cockpit area, obviously. Painted up underneath there. Anyway, can't be all instruction sheets arts all the time. While I'm letting stuff dry or thinking about other stuff, I'll touch up on that stuff. Yeah, I don't enjoy necessarily building model kits. I definitely like the model kits. And I like the little action figure Gundams because I like the designs of Gundams. And I like how they move and stuff, but making them, I only made really 2 of them, and they were pretty much basic Gundams. They weren't any of the fancy ones by any means. But they would be fun to paint. And I got to figure out, one thing I am trying to figure out, if someone has the answer. There's a lot of, I see a lot of videos with the Tamiya stuff where it either adds plastic or there's other tools to remove plastic. It kind of like burns it out or something. It's not just cutting it out. Kind of like hot tools or something. I want to get into that a little bit and really like bring some added distress to these things. Man. Where's the pain? Yeah. Almost is going to make the whole desk tumble. But not helpful. Not helpful. Must want something. Yeah, this cat he's a good dude, but he is demanding. He is demanding. So once again, I am masquerading my preferred cat podcast with being a toy robot cat podcast. Well, you know what? That's funny you say that, Giant Bumblebee, because I got the I was looking at this the other day. I got this at Hobby Lobby about a year ago. Totally on sale. It was like $7 or something. It was a ridiculous price. So I picked that up, and it's just, an articulated Bumblebee, but I'm like, well, that might be fun to paint up and do some stuff with. But then I'm like, do I really there's like 15 sprues of things that need to be cut out and sanded and put together and painted. I guess some of them are rubber, the rubber joints. But, and I just was like, if you're not going to build a model right, and I'm not always Mr. Craft, I'm an idea guy, and my style is a little chaotic. So making these models, you got to want to do them right. You want to spend the time to not totally hack it up. And there's a lot of work to do before I get to do the cool painting that I want to do. So, that is why this guy is still in his shrink wrap and not put together as much as I want to paint him. So if someone has made one of those and wants me to paint it or add some details to it or whatever, let's talk. Because I kind of like doing that stuff. But I don't want to build the dang model. So that's where I'm at with that. Yeah, I think Jiro does want to be a co-host, for sure. For sure. But it's been a long time since I bought a Gundam model. That is certainly... I was buying them way back when I was going to Japan, so it's been a minute. Yeah, they look like great kits. Giant Bumblebee. Hope you're alright. Jeez. I hope they're taking care of you. They look like great kits. I'm just not a model guy, like I said. So that's a factor. That's a factor for sure that slows me down. I bought my wife and kid a one of those different ones, but those like little book environments that you put on your bookshelf and you look in and there's a little light. It's a little environment that kind of takes you to a little fantasy world, as if little people live in your bookcase. And those things are quite involved, and they're just kind of slot into slot kind of model making, and some putting appliques and different things together and little fine details that provide you with completely. But at the same time, it's not something you rush through. But I just don't. I don't know. I doubt I'll build it. Honestly, I doubt I'd build it. If I had Starscream, maybe I would. For those of you who don't know, I play Ace Combat on my PS5. So I'm into the jets and the, airplanes and stuff. So I'd make Starscream probably and want to paint him up. There's not too much you can do with Bumblebee too. That was another thing. I had some ideas, but... All right, there we go. And that does it. 10:48. The water softener kicked me off. So, all right, man. T-Formers 2002, Giant Bumblebee 2, CD Freedom, Wind Charger, Baron, Ninjatron. Yeah, it sounds like they're already on their way. Princeton Phalanx 59, Ninja. Sounds like they're already trying to make us build our stuff. Timu, El Kevin, Bigum, the Chug Bug. All good questions tonight. I hope you guys got something out of my meandering look at price shifts over time and how things have creeped up over time and some of the outcomes that you can play out thusly. Yeah, that thing's terrible. I'm glad it kicked off. I'm glad I started at 9:30. How about that? Because this would have been smack dab in the middle. Anyway, I appreciate everybody. Thanks again for the $2 super chat. Sabertron Toys, I appreciate you. I will see you at a con later this year. And to that end, I'll have some Angry Archer merchandise coming out soon. So, check that out. I'll debut that here before too long. And Texas guy, we'll see you. We'll see you all next time. All right. Thanks for being here. We'll see ya.